ride is perfectly safe. Everything has been designed for your comfort and enjoyment.
It's October, and you know what that means. It's spooky season. And what better way to celebrate Halloween than to look at the world's top 5 scariest roller coasters. And when I say scariest roller coasters, I'm not talking about a ride's height, intensity, or, death factor. No. When I say scary, I'm purely looking at the execution of the ride's theme. Roller coasters by nature, they're already scary, but I like it when a park goes the extra mile and puts a nice, dark theme to enhance the experience. It can be simple, like a little mood lighting, maybe a decrepit bathroom for good taste. But some rides, their theming goes a little more morbid. I've seen some roller coasters where their theme can range from being burned alive to human testing. Some parks, primarily in the UK, they go all out on their eerie, dark, and suspenseful executions. And that's what really sells these roller coasters. What makes them so memorable. But which one of these rides have the most horrifying theme of them all? Well, let's stop dilly-dallying and get on with the top 5.
What could go wrong with a train? It's on tracks! There's no traffic! How could a train get stuck?
Walibi Holland. It's a park in the Netherlands with some pretty memorable roller coasters. But there's one ride in particular that really leaves an impression in my mind. And that would be Express Platform 13. Originally, the ride opened in 2000. It was themed to Superman until 2004. That's when Six Flags, they decided to stop managing Walibi Holland, so they took away the DC theme. That meant that Walibi Holland, they had to course correct and call the ride Express in 2005 until 2014, where they rethemed it again, this time to be known as Express Platform 13. However, this retheme wasn't just a name change. They would also give the ride a nice, abandoned train station aesthetic. Just to show you what I'm talking about, when you first enter the queue, you can see there's a ton of bright fluorescent lighting all around you, and you can only see the disgusting, grimy subway surrounding you on all sides. And yes, I know this is supposed to be a non-specific abandoned subway, but I wouldn't be surprised if Walibi Holland took some inspiration from the Chicago Blue Line, because besides the lack of bums and rats, it's nearly one for one. But besides that little footnote, as you progress farther and farther in the queue, you can tell the subway is not what it seems. Suddenly the hallways become optical illusions. The trains are suddenly barreling into the line, and as you get closer and closer to the station, the subway becomes darker, now only being lit by worker lights. And once you reach the dreaded Platform 13, the ride vehicles are only unveiled when the giant steel doors open in front of you. Once you board the ride, you enter the launch section, where you hear buzzing echoing back and forth along the launch tunnel, and then you take off. And unfortunately, that is also where the theming ends. Even though the queue, station, and launch all incorporate the abandoned subway station exceptionally well, the ride itself doesn't have anything. If you didn't notice, Express Platform 13 has the exact same layout as Rock and Roller Coaster. The problem is, it's not enclosed like Rock and Roller Coaster, so instead of doing the ride in the dark, it's in the bright daylight. Maybe if the coaster itself was enclosed in the dark like its sister ride Rock and Roller Coaster, I could rank this ride higher, but since it's not, I can only rank Express Platform 13 at the number 5 spot.
Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes! Eyes!
When I said there was a roller coaster that was themed to burning people alive, I wasn't kidding. Wicker Man at Alton Towers is one of the coolest ride concepts I've ever seen for a wooden coaster. When you think of a wooden coaster, you don't normally correlate fire with the ride. The entire concept of Wicker Man is that you're chosen to be part of a festival of the Bjorn, a secret, feral community that's living in the wooded area of Alton Towers. They are a hidden society that also desires a sacrifice, and in the festival of the Wicker Man, they need bodies for their sacrifice. The whole lore of this coaster is you're volunteering to be encased in wood and to be burned alive as a sacrifice to I don't know, Big Bob, this giant goat thing, as a way to restore nature and the cycle of life or something. I don't know, it's some kind of cult shit going on. I like to think it's loosely associated to the Wicker Man movie with Nicolas Cage, and something to do with bees, I don't know. But the giant half-man, half-goat-like structure is enough to solidify the dark theme. I just can't believe that this is a family coaster. I know Alton Towers likes their more haunting themes with their rides, but a family coaster revolving around the message of a sacrifice, that's pretty gruesome, especially when the entire ride lights on fire. But of course it's all perfectly safe and orchestrated. The ride wouldn't actually catch on fire in real life. Oh, wait.
Mr. Employee, sir, where's the mummy exhibit?
Manager assistance requested.
The Mummy at Universal is probably the most recognizable coaster on this list because I'm sure most of you have ridden this one before. Now, Revenge of the Mummy is supposed to be based on the Mummy movies, however, the ride takes a few creative liberties. So instead of immersing you in the film, it's kind of meant to have a night at the museum vibe. So you board your train to attempt to learn about the mummy's curse, but it turns out it's real. The creature offers you fortunes beyond your wildest dreams, or you can choose to be a permanent slave to him in eternal damnation. Before you can choose the obvious choice of being a slave, you launch off. You encounter some beetles, you go backwards, and then you're rushing through the dark, hearing the taunting voice of the mummy as you roar past some striking visuals, until suddenly, you come to a stop. There's something I forgot to tell you about this ride. The Mummy, it likes to break up the tension before completely subverting your expectations. There is an instant on the ride where you think it's over. You hear a cast member relent to you that you should pick up your stuff and exit to your left, until suddenly she turns into a skeleton and it's revealed to be the Mummy. If you ride this coaster for the first time and don't know about this effect, it's a real surprise, but there's not a lot of time to react to it because suddenly the entire room lights up in flames and you're blasted forward into a drop. It's a surreal experience that you don't typically see on roller coasters because I've never seen a ride that has a random fake out before continuing the rest of the cycle. But after this brief pause, you go down the drop, hit a few more turns, and then maneuver yourself back to the station, where you then see a cameo of Brendan Fraser drinking a cup of coffee. This part of the ride has always confused me. It kind of broke the tension a little bit. A better cameo would have been Dwayne Johnson. I think that would have been pretty cool, especially if he was in his scorpion gear. That would have been a better finale. You know, getting one last scare.
Of course, he wants us to cut through our feet. You go first.
If you were to ask me what is one of the most gory and terrifying horror movie franchises ever, I would most certainly say Saw. And if you asked me if this franchise should get a ride, I would be a little confused. But in 2009, Thorpe Park did just that. They opened Saw the Ride. This coaster, when I first heard about it, I wasn't that interested. The layout looked very basic and standard for a Gerstlauer coaster. So in my mind, I only saw this ride as nothing more than average. That was until I binged every Saw movie. And after that, I became way more intrigued. And now I can truly understand and appreciate how messed up and demented Saw the Ride really is. If you've never seen the Saw movies, they're about a man by the name of John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, a poor guy with cancer who, instead of wanting to make meth like a normal person with cancer, he wanted to build death traps. Jigsaw's whole philosophy was to make people more appreciative of their lives by putting them in a dangerous machine that could end them. And Saw the Ride tries to do just that. Here you are placed in your very own jigsaw trap and have to choose whether to ride or die. The entire coaster is filled with Easter eggs from the Saw movies. My favorite one is when you see Billy the Puppet riding on his tricycle and he asks the riders if they want to play a game. After that scene, you go down the first drop, avoiding 2 swinging pendulum blades, and then eventually hitting your first inversion. And if you look closely, you'll realize that you're in the bathroom game from the original Saw movie, with John Kramer taking a little nap on the floor. Sorry if I spoiled that for you. But after the first inversion, the ride kind of takes a nosedive in theming. Yeah, similarly to Express Platform 13, most of the coaster takes place outside, and unfortunately, they don't really carry the theming over. Once you go down the first drop, you do encounter some spinning saw blades. I will appreciate that bit of detail, but there's nothing much after that. The bulk and majority of the theming is in the queue and station, which isn't bad by any means. I enjoy all the references to the Saw movies. My member berries are going crazy. But I think it would have been better if there were a few more traps along the layout. Or, heck, it would have been better if they decided to just enclose the entire first drop, make it something like Mystery Mine. That could have been neat. Who knows? But, nevertheless, Saw the Ride is a hair-raising roller coaster with a truly mind-boggling and bloody theme. But there is still one ride that I think is a lot more scary than Saw the Ride. What coaster am I talking about? Well, to answer that, we have to go back to Alton Towers.
Let's put a smile on that face.
The Smiler, in my opinion, is one of the most demented, disturbing, unsettling themes that has ever been adapted to a roller coaster. The entire objective of the Smiler is to disorient you as much as possible to get you to smile, through the help of the Ministry of Joy, a cult that Alton Towers created because this park, they kind of have a thing with cults. They will flip you upside down over 14 times while flashing strobe lights in your face and running you through something called the Marmalizer. This massive spider-like structure that stretches over the entire roller coaster that has multiple different functions that are meant to help its subjects. The Marmalizer has 5 legs, each equipped with a divine gadget. And those would be the Mind Manipulator, the Flasher, the Hypnotizer, the Giggler, the Inculator, and the Tickler. Everything the Ministry of Joy requires for you to get corrected. The Smiler is so creative in what it sets out to do that I can't help but love the messed up nature of it all. I love how the logo for the ride just looks like the Cheshire Cat. I don't know if that was intentional, but if it was, props to you, Alton Towers. And if it wasn't for the aesthetic of the ride, I love the soundtrack that IMA Score did for the Smiler. The soundtrack for the ride is this jacked up, funky laughter that kind of mocks you into accepting the Smiler. I'm sure just listening to the song in the station all day would make you go insane, but that's kind of the point. I know the Smiler itself, it's mostly known for holding the inversion record at 14, but I think it should also hold the record for having the most messed up theme on any roller coaster. It's insane what Alton Towers did with this ride, and they should be proud of themselves. But with that being said, that's it. That's my top 5 list of the scariest roller coasters ever created. I hope you enjoyed, consider subscribing, and since you reached the end of the video, I think you deserve a jump scare. Well, here you go.
I'm pregnant.